I
Three,
mean,
2, 1, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is Season 2, Episode 17, Rescue Others to Rescue Ourselves. And today we will be talking about the Younglings arc from the Clone Wars, which would be Season 5, Episodes 6 to 9, a really, really good arc with a lot of lessons to learn, and that it's really, really fun, too, because we finally get to see people making lightsabers. So what do you guys think? Should we just start with like episode 1 and start thinking about like what we learned in this episode?
Yeah, but like I think as I just had like thoughts on the whole
general,
about it,
yeah.
Which is it's always back to kind of go back to Clone Wars and rewatch some of these things because it's been a minute, right, since seeing a lot of the earlier seasons, and this was season 5, so it's always it's fun, right, to refresh your memory and see things in a different way to when you saw it the first time. So kind of going back to this arc was especially meaningful since we have been talking in a couple of other episodes about like Qui-Gon or Yoda's arc and the Lost Missions and the world between. No, I haven't talked about the world between worlds, but the Mortis arc. So always these episodes about the Force are really interesting and really insightful. So yeah, seeing this like from the Padawan / Youngling perspective is, it's always fun to see Filoni's take right on the Force, and especially through the eyes of youth instead of like the eyes of like the jaded or the experienced, right? So definitely fun. I felt like the first 2 episodes were a little stronger since it was like a lot more Force driven, and the latter half was more skill / wits driven. I feel like more action oriented instead of internally driven, but it was a great arc. I feel like to start this off.
Yeah, what did you think, Mo, watching them again?
well, watching it again, I can't fail to like see this arc being the sister arc of the Yoda arc that we get at the end. From our, and definitely check that video out because it's really, really fun. But if I, in both you get like 5 lessons. In a way, the 5 lessons from the Younglings arc are the lessons that tend to go towards the external, the outward world. You end up going through, I think it was like hope, courage, trust, I think patience and selflessness.
Courage, hope, patience, trust, confidence, and selflessness.
Which, and it's amazing, like they all relate to, they all make sure that the Younglings understand how they are part of the Force and the world and how they impact it. And that's those are the characteristics you use to actually go through that. Then the Yoda arc, it's like the internal world. It was like, it's all about the mind. It's all about how the external might have influenced it. And then you get like confusion, anger, sadness, joy, and eventually serenity. So now I just see it as interesting. It's like the starting of the way Younglings get introduced to the Force is through their experience with the external, but then you only gain
the interactions with the physical world,
and then you only get mastery once you actually interact with the internal world. So I cannot unsee that parallel, that this just is like the sister, like the prequel arc to Yoda's. And we get Yoda in the beginning, which is like I love like the Younglings are like excited. They're like, oh, like Master Yoda's here. Like it wasn't just like you would think like, oh, it's just Padawans, like some lesser Jedi will come and like give them like, oh, this is what you have to do. No, like the actual like master of the whole Jedi Order is there to tell them and guide them. So, and I love like how detached Yoda is from everything as well. It's like, well, if you get stuck there, that's
That's on you.
That's on you.
Yep.
Like you just gotta get it. Like it's on you.
Yeah, you're gonna get stuck in there, so figure it out.
To figure it out.
Yep.
So it's this whole like idea of like how does the Force like interact with one another and our intentions, like that's how they got the Kyber crystal. So I think all in all, I really enjoyed this. I remember loving the arc when I first saw it, especially the Gungi, the little Shiwik.
Oh yeah,
Gungi,
definitely.
He's the real MVP.
Wookiee youngling.
Real MVP.
Oh yeah.
It's like, but seeing it again, it's so I appreciate it way more now.
Yeah, I mean, I think even from the beginning, it's like you're teaching them so much. I mean, you have to all work together to even open up the temple. And then once you get in, you meet, with Master Yoda and explaining to them, that Jedis are the Force made physical. And how, he's trying to explain all these things to him. And then I love that in that moment, Yoda like wields his lightsaber with the Force, which is, I think, how Yoda should have always wielded the lightsaber, like just using the Force. So I was just like, yes, that's what I always wanted to see. And it was just like for a little scene, but I was like, I felt vindicated a little bit. It's like, yes, I know that's how he should have used the lightsabers. But anyway, I thought that was really cool. And then obviously the whole arc of them trying to find themselves. I mean, the crawl of this episode is, he who faces himself finds himself. And it's these lessons that they learn, that in trying to find the Kyber crystals, they find their own weaknesses and learn to accept that weakness and like surpass it. And I'm pretty sure those are the tenets of like what you were saying, Mo. It's like those are the main original tenets that they're taught. So they probably knew all this before going in, but it's different, being taught in the classroom and then putting it into practice and being forced to see something in yourself that you don't necessarily want to accept. I mean, Pedro specifically was just like, what a shit show. He was
obviously
like,
he's a white guy.
The only human among the younglings. And I remember watching it and Josbando was like, I don't think we even needed a human in this arc. Like,
we
I would have been fine.
We needed the turd muffin. And the turd muffin needs to be a human.
The human. The one random super arrogant dude who's immediately like, I'm going first because I'm badass and I don't need any of you whatsoever. And then fails. I mean, he grabs a chunk of ice and brings that to Master Yoda. It's like, here's my Kyber crystal. Oh, it's melting. Never mind. Let's go back in. So, I mean, it's really cool to see them face all the things about themselves. I mean, you got like Biff is like terrified of the monsters, and then you have Katuni who's like terrified of heights, and Sat who's like over dependent on technology, which is like you're not mindful of the Force whatsoever. And it's not until his machine breaks that he's actually able to sense his Kyber.
He breaks
crystal.
it.
Well, in a moment of anger, yes.
Right. But he still needs it. He still uses it to like get his Kyber crystal, which I think is the lesson there, right? Like he was over relying, expected it to do the work, but it's a tool, and the tool allows you to do what you need to do, and you just have to rely on yourself first, which I think was a great part of his little arc in there.
His little arc, and then obviously Gungi, who lacks patience, because Wookiees would do, but he's fantastic.
He's a beautiful
and then
boy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then Ganodi, who just like gives up, thinks she's not gonna find anything, and it's like complete hopelessness. And then they learn, to flip it and find that virtue within themselves in the process of getting their Kyber crystal, which is like such a cool way to do it. And then obviously when Pedro finally realizes that he has to be like selfless and help somebody out, that's when he finds his Kyber crystal. And then I love it, like when he runs through and like the wall had already frozen, and everybody's like, oh my God, he's gonna die. And then he punches through and Yoda's all like, it's just frozen water. It's fine. Like, dude, you threatened that we were like gonna die in there, and now you're all like, oh, it's just frozen water. It's fine. I mean, that one looks pretty solid to me.
It's what he said in Empire, right? When Luke asked him like, will I need my weapons in there? And Yoda's like, no, sorry. When Luke is, what's in there? And Yoda's is like, only what you take with you. So like Yoda, like, I don't think he was being callous in telling them, or malicious when he was telling them, go in there, and if you don't come back, you'll never come back. I think it was like, he was just telling what he needed to tell them so that they felt the importance of what they were doing. I don't think he would have let them freeze to death in there or anything.
Oh no, I don't think so either. I'm just saying,
gotten close, but it's kind of like, hey, I need to push you in the right direction, and if I need to kind of imply that you're gonna freeze to death to get you to do it, then I will do it. But
hey, sometimes you need motivation to get things done, and fear,
and it worked.
Yeah,
and the fear of death is
it's an extremely good motivator.
To be a great motivator.
Usually, I mean, that's why we're all of us are here, right? Because
that's why humans exist.
Ancestors were very afraid of dying, and we made it. Thanks, prehistoric ancestors, so that I can just take naps on my couch and have no. I mean, anyway. Although Nana, you were talking about this thing about Yoda wielding like the lightsaber with the Force, and that was something that I didn't pick up the first time, right? That I was watching the show, but something that like I thought about watching it now was that Yoda's emphasis when he was like showing off the lightsaber was that like this is the only way to protect, and like a Jedi needs this weapon, and in a way, like I don't know if this is just me reading too much into it, but they're doing deep dives here, so I'm going for it. But he was like his over reliance in that speech in emphasizing that the lightsaber was what protects people. For me, kind of framed the way that the Jedi have fallen from grace in a way, because the lightsaber is supposed to be like the last line of defense, and what Yoda tells Luke is like never for like the Force is never for attack. So the lightsaber should be like the thing you use at the when you have no other choice. So for him to like right off the bat be saying that this is the way that Jedi defend people, it's just like, well, this is definitely it kind of encapsulates how we can see that the Jedi aren't the Jedi from the High Republic. They're the fall of the Jedi, and how the Empire is able to take over them, because they aren't protectors anymore. They're aggressors. They've
warriors. Lost their way.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to kind of see that juxtaposition, right, between the aggressive warrior-esque mentality of like the lightsaber as a weapon versus the ethereal spiritual connection to the Force through the Kyber crystal within the cave. So it was just like a little interesting little nugget of Yoda that I caught there. But like, it's kind of rendered moot in a way after most beautiful little deconstruction there with Yoda's arc in the Lost Missions, which I think in a way is kind of capped right in The Last Jedi, with Yoda then telling Luke that the final lesson, right? It's like, okay, you conquered yourself, and now the last thing is to let go of yourself and see that we are what they grow beyond, and that your Padawan is going to surpass you. So just cap it off and cap the ego and just let go of everything. I think that's a very interesting way to look at all these arcs as interconnected aspects of the Force.
Because I think that Yoda did realize that they were on the wrong path. Because and we've talked about it when we've talked about Clone Wars before, about the fact that they're supposed to be peacekeepers, but then they become soldiers. So what happens when a peacekeeper becomes a soldier? The entire mentality, all of it goes out the window, and it turns into something else, which is what the Jedi are at this point. But we see Yoda realize that, and then we see his journey to find the internal side of the Force, and then obviously throughout the films, the development of who Master Yoda becomes and wants the Jedi to become. As we move forward. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, Mo.
No, I think you all said it perfectly.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's what we see. We see a younger or a less wise Yoda. They're getting there. They still rely on, I have to like have a saber, like a lightsaber, and that's what. And even the whole idea that Jedi are the Force personified. That's ego to the next level, because when we see the Bendu, when that's Force, that's a Force being. Even like it's
one in the middle.
Yeah, but you see that hubris collected through the years. Like, the saber is everything. Jedi are the epitome of the Force. Like, and then how that juxtaposes with the actual lessons, because one of the lessons was do not rely on technology. It's just a tool.
Mhm.
And then right off the bat, you're telling them, oh, this is the symbol of, which could be the other way. You can see it from a symbol perspective that, oh, somebody that carries the lightsaber, then that means they're protectors. So, but it's going back to like breaking that beautiful connection that's like between the Force user and the Kyber crystal, which seems to be that whole journey of knowing yourself and like in relation with others. And then how the Jedi and the Sith also like bastardize it and create out of the Kyber crystal a weapon. Because I'm sure if they can be weaponized, my guess is that the Kyber crystals can be used for like energy sources and like being able to sustain life. So in a way, just going through the whole journey and then just using the Kyber crystal for violence, it's itself lends part of that corruption. Like it limits the creativity of like what the Force can be and what it can be beyond what the Jedi are and the Sith are, which is babies just fighting for power.
Right.
Yeah.
But and to that point about like how the Force, is attuned to the one, the self and whatnot, I think that was one of the beautiful things right about the episode. It's like how everyone finds their Kyber crystal in connection to what they're fearful of and how they overcome that. And it's kind of reminded me a lot about High Republic stories that are coming out now, where like each Jedi has a connection to the Force in very different ways, and some people see it as music, other people see it as stars, or everyone has a very poetic connection to the Force in that way. So like seeing all of the Padawans all of the younglings, there's no Padawans yet, all the younglings get their Kyber crystals in that way, and how their negative becomes the positive was I think a really interesting storytelling device, and not just for adults watching this, but also for kids watching it, because they're not gonna be thinking of it as critically, right, as we're looking at it, but they're still gonna internalize, right, that they can overcome themselves. And I liked that each one had a very specific thing that they had to overcome, and I'm sure that there's a million other things that they could have chosen, but I feel like these 5 things that they put were universal enough and relevant to like our times, that like anyone can identify with one, if not all, of the fears and flaws and opportunities, right, that they had to confront and overcome.
And I think there was one line that always confused me when I like watched this arc, which is when Yoda says that the crystals like focus the Force from the Jedi. So it makes you think that if you're not a Force user, you can't use a lightsaber, but we know that's not true. And then I was actually, because I'm watching Rebels now, so I'm at where Kanan is trying to teach Sabine how to use the Darksaber. And obviously Sabine is not a Force user, and but they reiterate the fact that the Force flows through all of us. So just because you can't use it the same way that the Jedi can, it doesn't mean that you don't have the Force. So once that Kyber crystal has been activated by whichever Jedi created it, anybody can access it, because there is Force within you. You might not be able to use it as effectively, but it's all about the fact that the Force is within all of us. And I thought that was like very inclusive that they do in Rebels, that it's like, just because you're not a Jedi or a Sith doesn't mean that you don't have the Force within you. So that clarified that for me.
What Qui-Gon said in episode 1, it's like the midichlorians, the M-counts, whatever you want to call them, are within all human beings, and without midichlorians, life could not exist. So like everyone's got midichlorians within them, so by extension, the Force flows through everyone, right? It's just like you were saying, it's just how we're connected to it. But like I interpreted the whole lightsaber thing a little bit differently. I think that obviously anyone can use it once it's built, right? Because it's like a phone, right? It's built, you can turn it on and off. But I think the point that Yoda was making, this is how I interpret it, was like not everyone can build a lightsaber. Like the robot, the master, I forgot his name, rope and the ship that's been helping Jedi for thousands of years. I don't think he can build a lightsaber. I mean, he can build the lightsaber itself, but he can't will the Kyber crystal to
he can't awaken the Kyber crystal. Yeah,
exactly. So I think only a Jedi can do that. Well, I mean, not a Jedi, right? A
Force user.
A light
Force
side user can do that. But once the Jedi is once the lightsaber is built, then like anyone can use it. I feel that's how I interpret it.
And going into that, because now we're getting into episode 2 then, which is a test of strength, which is when you meet the droid that teaches them how to build their lightsabers. And it's another question of like the youngling stuff. It's like, a droid is gonna teach me how to build lightsabers? Like what? And it's like, dude, droids are way more sentient than you think. I mean, I think the Clone Wars has always made it important for us to know, R2-D2 is a person. So C-3PO. So is this droid, I mean, who maybe cannot wield the Force, but it's sentient and has experiences and has been around for centuries helping Jedi build them the lightsabers. And I felt like that whole sequence when they're picking their the parts and everything, it feels very Ollivanders to me from Harry Potter, like the choosing of the wand, you know? And going back to what you were saying, Goose, about like the Kyber crystals and the lightsabers, then, I don't think at the end of the day that a lightsaber would be as effective to somebody that wasn't the one that built it. Kind of like the Elder Wand. Like if you don't win the Elder Wand, you don't connect to it the same, and then it's not as effective. Which is, I think, has over the ages what has happened with like the dark saber and why it's so important that you win it through battle for it to mean something. So it made me think about the Elder Wand and wands and Ollivander and all that stuff. So
it's probably,
I thought it was like a
good point.
Well, it's like anything that's like bespoken. Like it was built for somebody in mind. Anybody else can use it. They can fit in it if they can. They're gonna be kinks. You won't be able to use it as effectively or be in tune with it. Or maybe you don't know the balance of it and end up chopping your own hand. Like that's the thing that could happen. Like that's how I see sabers. Like those that are not Force users might just don't know how.
Well, it's like General Grievous, right? General Grievous cannot use the Force. He wields 4 lightsabers. Easy peasy.
Well, I mean, it's constructed to
cyber enhanced, obviously.
Which that's a good tangent. I think that like something popped in my mind what Nani was saying. Like I feel like there should be a droid that should be a Force user. I think that's a possibility.
That would be complicated because that would contradict George Lucas because a droid does not have midichlorians.
Yes, but we don't know how can express themselves.
No, and I feel like Grievous, he still had organic parts. Like he still had his heart, and he was originally an organic being. So it wouldn't have been out of the realm of possibility that if he was originally a Force user, he could have continued being a Force user as a droid.
I'm gonna actually this one. Grievous does not have a Force connection. He knows the Sith arts because Dooku taught him, but he cannot use the Force.
No, and that's what I said. Like if he would have been a Force user before he became a droid.
My understanding is he's not, but I can't 100% confirm or deny.
Well, right, and that's why I'm saying if he would have been. Like then we would have ended up with maybe a droid that's a Force user because he still had organic parts. But
I mean, I think it's interesting what you're proposing with the droid Force using thing, Mo, because it could be brought in as a kind of counterbalance with what's happening with the clones, because the clones aren't Force sensitive because that's not how cloning works, and that's what Palpy wants. Palpy wants a Force sensitive clone and trying to inject the M count right into the clone so he can create a Force sensitive clone. So it's like that duality. It's like a living matter without the Force, but then inorganic matter or mechanical matter with the Force. I think that would be interesting if it is explored somehow. I think they're going to have to jump through hoops to explain
To
it
actually-
a little bit.
yep,
But
yep.
I mean, but it's Star Wars, it's fantasy. They can do
Wars.
whatever they want.
Do whatever they want.
Mhm.
It's possible. I mean, they
but-
can even pull Transformers and say there's like this M count cube that gives matter.
What's it called in Transformers? The Matrix of
The Matrix, the
Destiny
no,
or some shit like that.
I don't know. No, I think it didn't have like
The
a
spark.
the
The spark?
The spark was in the second one, I thought. And the Matrix, whatever. They have all the movies are dumb.
all the movies or something.
I agreed.
So
Oh,
I mean, they're fun, but they're stupid.
Yeah.
They're just Michael Bay making money. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
that's explosion.
One of the best epic rap battles of history. Michael Bay comes at the end to win the rap battle.
a lot of explosions.
With
And well, the
A lot
critics
of
are complaining.
A lot of
I'm working on
explosions
the
and some
sequel.
lens flare. Yeah. But anyway, back to the younglings. So I love the fact that, you know, you go through all the steps of them actually finding the Kyber crystals and then the
Mhm.
individualization of the actual lightsaber parts. I mean, the
Mhm.
fact that Gungi has this like
Gungi. Oof.
wooden green lightsaber. Wow.
That should be a t-shirt. I'm gonna write that down.
That should be a
Gungi's lightsaber. It's funny because it's like they kept saying Gungi like in the episode, but in my mind it's Gungi. Like I keep reading
Gungi.
Gungi, and it will always be Gungi. Like I can try to say Gungi, but Gungi,
It's
the
not gonna
Spanglish
happen.
is gonna
Gungi.
the Spanglish is always gonna translate it to Gungi.
Gungi will have to have a U right in the middle.
Well, to be
Sería
Gungi in
Gungi.
English, it would need to have two O's, right?
No, pero I mean in Spanish.
En español.
It'll
Porque
be
si no sería Gungi.
Gunhi. It'll be
Oh,
Gunhi.
You
well,
need
right.
another U
That's
in
why
Spanish.
it's Spanglish. Gung. Yeah, see? Spanglish. Let me write that down. That's gonna be a cool t-shirt.
Gungi. No, but I think that what you were saying, like that Nani was saying, like that whole your story and your upbringing also influences like the exterior of the.
Mhm.
It felt
Mhm.
very RPG. Also, like, ooh, I'm like choosing what.
The affinities. Yeah.
Yes.
This
Right,
affinity
right,
for
right.
me. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Which
And of
speaking,
course-
speaking of which, sorry to cut you.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Going back to like the first episode, like I don't know if you guys played Jedi Fallen Order,
Yes.
but in Fallen Order when he goes to Ilum, it's a great game.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
You should play it, especially now it's
I
probably
know.
free on Steam or something.
Mhm.
But he has to go to Ilum, right, to do lightsaber shit. Spoiler alert, Nanny, I'm sorry. But
It's fine,
I just
it's
find
fine.
like since I hadn't seen the episode in so long, I have forgotten like how Ilum looked and how the temple looked inside. But all of a sudden,
Yeah.
when Yoda activates it and like the giant Kyber crystal dial comes down, like the sun
Yeah.
hits it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's the video game.
so
Oh my
It's the
God,
video game.
it's exactly like the
Really?
video game. Thank
Yeah.
you, game designers, for paying
Wow.
attention to the lore that already exists, because this is exactly the same. So yeah, so I totally agree, Mo. There's some like really cool like video gamey stuff
Yeah.
here, but in the good way, not in the
No,
hokey,
no, not in
not in
not
the
in
hokey
a-
way.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they did. It was like a lot of different like references and like things that get together organically, because then you know it this whole like beautiful. It's not like Yoda's arc, which is like all like on the the force and like all the bendy, but here we get all the on how do they apply those lessons in real life,
Mhm.
and then we get Hondo.
Hondo
Hondo.
Onaka.
Who is like one thing that I have forgotten completely about Hondo for some reason was that he literally flies in a space flying saucer, like a UFO from the 1950s.
Yeah.
I was like, I totally forgot about that. And I saw it. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this one of these like old school like Red Scare alien movies from back in the day?
Black and white and strings.
It was, yeah, it felt
Yeah.
like it was like it was like a crossover from Star Wars with like The Day the Earth Stood Still or one of those old movies. And I was like, oh right, that's Hondo's shit.
That is his
I
ship.
totally
Yep.
forgot. I totally forgot about it, that it was a flying saucer.
And you also forget like at least I forgot how Hondo was, because like Rebels is such a different
They softened him up a lot.
Yeah, they
right?
did soften him up a lot in
like
Rebels.
you end up in Rebels. Hondo ends up being like that lovable, like stupid, like, oh, it's like he's gonna still save the day, like
yeah,
he's a
and it's
good
like
guy.
always my friend. I will kind of
He
stab
might
you in the
steal
back,
something, but it won't.
yeah,
It won't affect
yeah,
anybody.
but it won't actually cause your death or something. Like Clone Wars, Hondo is a little bit more. Like, I love him. He's fantastic.
I love
but
him.
oh, I love him. He's great. And
Well,
I
we
love
need to
what
see
you were
him
saying.
at a Galaxy's Edge.
Oh yeah,
He's in that. He's there. He's there.
Yeah.
You can see him for real.
For reals.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
Oh.
But anyway, I agree with what you were saying, Mo, that, you know, the episode 1 is like learning these lessons, and obviously just because you learn a lesson doesn't mean it's going to be like immediately applied, because as soon as the threat, Hondo and the pirates show up, they kind of revert to all of their flaws. Like Pedro is immediately like, I am the best, I can do this, and you know, they kind of
taking
revert
my own crystal and like
and I'm hiding it. It's like, no, give them to me so I can keep them safe. No, I'm taking mine because I can build my own. And, you know, and he's already at the beginning like, oh, my lightsaber is ready. And it's like, dude, if you like that, you're going to blow yourself in the face, because it's actually not right.
That's the only thing that's going to happen. You're going to blow yourself in the face.
So, I mean, it just speaks to, you can learn lessons, but you still have to put them into practice and have,
Exactly. It's like what we've discussed in episodes past. It's like the Force isn't a video game when you unlock something and then you just keep leveling up, and it ties back to. I would say I hate doing this, but I actually don't, because I love the movie. But it's like Last Jedi. It's like, sorry, people that kind of keep being upset with Luke's portrayal, but it's just like, yeah, he might have conquered the dark side in Return of the Jedi, but that doesn't mean it's linear. That doesn't mean that you keep, you know, in that upward trend all the time. It's like life is ups and downs, and sometimes you'll be in your highest high, and then the next day you might be on the lowest low. So you still know the lesson, but just because you learned it doesn't mean that you can have it be applied in the day-to-day life consistently and efficiently 100% of the time. It's a lesson you have to keep applying to yourself, even if you already learned it.
It's always a struggle. I mean, and especially when you feel like crap, it's really hard to be optimistic. It's something you have to work on, you know, with whatever life hits you. And it's part of like staying, you know, mentally healthy and adaptable and evolving. And, you know, it's not, and maybe a lesson that you learned when you were younger, it's not going to apply in the same way that it will apply as you're older. So everything changes, and we have to be able to understand that and not be like, oh yeah, I checked this off the box, I learned that, I'm done, okay, moving on. Life doesn't work that way. So I like that they showed that just because they learned the lesson doesn't mean that they're perfect now. Like they still have to, you know, put into practice and learn and be in an active, you know, threat situation and see how they'll respond. So it's really cool.
Which goes to the fortune cookie, right, of the episode, or the crawl, or whatever, however we want to call it, which is like the young are often underestimated, and it's shown like great in this episode with like the adults and the pirates, and even Ahsoka somewhat, and the droid helping them build their lightsabers are all underestimated. Not underestimated. Well, yeah, definitely underestimating them, because they're, you know,
and especially
younglings.
the pirates, because when they are about to like attack the pirates, are like, that's Republic. Like, what are we doing? And Hano's just like, oh, it's just younglings.
It's children.
Like, this is it's not a problem. Yeah.
But creative thinking, they think differently. They see things from different points of view, and it's something that's also, I think, especially with how the cultural wars are going on right now in the real life. It's a lot of things that are happening with the generational fighting that's going on around with the baby boomers and Gen Xers and millennials, and there's a lot of like underestimating of like the younger generations, and it's just like I think the episode is analogous to that. It's just like, just because someone is young or is coming from that different point of view doesn't mean that how they're looking at things doesn't have anything to say or can't contribute to changing the world as we see fit. So it's an interesting episode for that reason. And it's also called A Test of Strength, which there's a High Republic story called A Test of Courage by Justina Ireland. I don't know if she's making a callback to this episode and this episode title. I haven't read the book, so maybe I'll have to double check that. Maybe I'll tweet. I'll at her on Twitter and see.
And then with new perspectives, there's new things that you can come up with. I remember when I watched the episode, I thought it was really cool how they used like the training laser balls that are supposed to be just for training, and they actually get a bunch of them to turn on and use them as weapons. So it's like, dude, ingenious ideas. Sometimes something you don't think about because you're so ingrained, this is only for training. And then they use it as a weapon. And I thought it was fantastic.
Right.
I was like, that was so cool.
You know what I was thinking with that? You know how like Petro was kind of the training with the remote at the beginning of the episode, and he like had some sweet moves. I was like, oh my god, this guy's like a little tiger flowing around, and that just made me think of Luke in episode 4. And like Luke's like what, 19, like 19 or something in that movie, and this kid's what, like 7 years old, and he's already like, you know, kicking Luke's ass. I was like, oh my god, Luke really had a learning curve. He really was at a disadvantage next to these younglings.
Yeah, well, because they get trained pretty much since they can walk, and they get found by the Jedi. So I mean, Luke really was at a disadvantage,
which makes him all the more impressive.
And he got minimum training compared to all these younglings and stuff that got like constant training.
He was the original working from home student before all of us had to go through COVID times. But there was something about this episode that I really, really enjoyed. I don't know if it was like a purposeful Easter egg that like they put on the episode. I mean, this doesn't have to do with like analyzing the episode and the Force perspective, just more as a like Easter egg talk, you know, in relationship to other movies. Is like when Ahsoka's making the plan to get all the pirates off the ship, and he's like, we'll just do the airlock so that they're all sucked into space. And I'm like, is that an Alien reference? Because that's the plot of every single Alien movie. And then Hondo says something to her, and she's like, I'm getting you off my ship. And I'm like, is that an Air Force One reference? Is that like Harrison Ford's get off my plane type of thing? Harrison Ford, Han Solo, synergy thing here. I was like, I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't know if it was intentional, but for me, it's like when the minute she said that, I'm like, Air Force One.
All the universes are interconnected.
Especially if Harrison Ford stars in them.
Is involved. So yeah, when she's all badass about it, then she ends up getting sucked in anyway, which was like wah wah. but now we have the younglings in the ship by themselves. Ahsoka's out, and I have to say, because Ahsoka, I love her white lightsabers, but the green and the yellow are so epic as well. I love that combination, and then you get to see them again.
Those are. That's why I was so upset in season 7 when the Anakin turned them blue. I'm like, no, it's like the green and yellow were the best combination. But
Anakin was trying his best. We've talked about this. Like Anakin just didn't know any better, and he thought he did what he thought. But anyway, that brings us into episode 8, which is Bound for Rescue, and I love the crawl on this one. When we rescue others, we rescue ourselves. And it's awesome. And obviously you have the kids who are now alone on the ship, and they lost Ahsoka, and now they have to figure out what to do. So
one question I had, I don't know if you guys know, because I don't recall this from the previous episodes, if in the previous episodes they had mentioned what the ship that we're on was called.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think they do it maybe in this episode.
Because in this episode, they mentioned it, and it's called the Crucible. And I thought it was very interesting. I'll get to it in a minute. But I just wanted to make sure if like I happened to catch it in this episode, or if they had actually mentioned it in the previous 2. But when I saw the name, I'm like, they don't name ships here or something without randomly a reason. And this is a word that means something important. So I like make sure to double let me fact check myself. So I went into the dictionary to
check the meaning.
Make sure. And at first meaning in the dictionary was like the crucible, where you like melt metal, and I'm like, nope, that's not it. Second meaning, a situation of severe trial, or in which different elements interact, leading to the creation of something new. And I'm like, Filoni, or whoever wrote this episode, I see what you did there. I see what you're talking about with the ship as a vessel for these younglings that are on their path to transforming themselves, even though Anakin's probably going to kill them in a couple of years at the end of the Clone Wars. But
which is why I think they really should have run away and joined the circus in this episode.
Only Gungi. Only Gungi. Everyone can save Gungi. He's my sweet boy.
Just say Gungi. No, I was watching it. I remember, and I was just like, when they like joined the circus to try to infiltrate to save Ahsoka and stuff, and I was like, kids, just run away with the circus, please, because you're gonna get murdered. Just yes, go with the circus. You're awesome. You can do your flips and your tricks, and you'll be alive.
Yeah, they had a great choreography there. I don't know if they practiced it before or if they just happened to do that at the temple when they're bored. I was like, you guys are great.
Yeah,
like that's really, really talented.
It's impressive.
Really talented.
Most
like
impressive.
I knew you guys could jump, but this level of of coordination,
fantastic.
kudos to you.
Perfect.
But I think the best part of the episode for me was I forgot her name, but it's like when they're all trying to build their lightsabers and everyone's got theirs done. They turn them on, and she is not able to finish hers, and she's like, "I'll finish mine when I'm ready." And I'm like, "Oh man, I love that."
Yeah,
That's exactly.
I think that one is
we can't rush ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly. Don't rush yourself. It's that idea of like, you know, the flower never is like wasting time. Like I want to bloom. It's just sitting there,
I'll do when I'm ready.
taking sunshine, taking rain, and then one day it blooms. So.
And it's beautiful all on its own.
Yeah. Oh, the whole process is
when it's ready. Yes.
And Pedro almost killed himself for trying to build it too fast and rushing it. So I do love that he kind of flips that and then kind of lets his lightsaber get taken and then it blows up in the pirate's face. So he uses what was going to be a mistake to his advantage. So we can see that they are growing, they are learning, and it's part of what we were saying before. They learned the lessons, they have to apply it, and then with the crucible, it's like you're kind of forging them into these lessons, and these are just like kind of the basic elements. Like there's so much more that they have to learn as time goes by, but you see the process of how they start to internalize these lessons and make themselves better. And I love that you also get a little bit of flexibility, because technically they really shouldn't have gone after Ahsoka, and Ahsoka's like a little upset about it, but not really, because Ahsoka is really one of those characters that learns to adapt way better than others. And I love how she starts to like break the rules and stuff, and it's like, oh, there she goes, learning from Anakin. She learned to break the rules from Anakin, and then she found a way to adapt it, not be as extreme as Anakin, obviously. But I mean, Ahsoka would have been a fantastic teacher to these younglings because she's not as extreme. But obviously, we know what happens.
And I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember, but I guess story-wise for Ahsoka, there's a moment where we're seeing a more mature and like I can take care of myself. Ahsoka like doesn't have to rely on Anakin and like on Obi-Wan or anybody else. It's like, yeah, I'm Ahsoka. I can take care of myself. I'm still a Padawan, but I'm a badass. Like,
and not only taking care of herself, teaching.
Teaching others.
She's already able to like teach these kids so many things, I think. And it's also awesome that it is the younglings that save her. I mean, she's like, there's bumps in the road here, and then that first escape attempt failed, but I mean, they were the ones to get her out from there. So now we get to like the last episode, which is A Necessary Bond, which I also love, which shows the adaptability that Ahsoka has, that when she realizes that she's in a bind and there's nothing she can do about it, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And she's able to like make a team with Hondo, and they can do that. Other Jedis would have probably not done that. It's like, teaming up with you? No, it's not going to happen. But Ahsoka's able to. And it says like the crawl on this one is choose your enemies wisely, as they may be your last hope.
Right.
Which, which is true. So now we get Grievous invading Forum. It's like, because Count Dooku's pissed because he was kidnapped by Hondo, and it's like, Dooku knows how to hold a grudge.
I don't blame Dooku on this one. If I got kidnapped by some pirates, I might be a little upset about it, even if I got returned in one piece. So maybe somewhat justified this time around.
Somewhat, just a little bit.
Somewhat.
My God.
But in terms of this episode, I personally felt it was like the weakest one of all four of them. Like it's like, I think it could have been easily incorporated into the third one and kind of pack those lessons in there, and that way we don't have to have a overextended chase scene, which is basically what this episode was. Not that it was bad, but in terms of like optimizing what the core of what the arc is trying to do, I feel like this one could have easily been one episode with Bound for Rescue, because ultimately I think is not saying that much more beyond what we've already been seeing. But
yeah, it's like a transition episode. It's like, okay, we're done with the Younglings. They had their own like main character arcs. Now we're back to Ahsoka and the Clone Wars, and we throw in Grievous, so you are aware that this is over.
That it's still the Clone Wars. Yeah,
it's still the Clone Wars.
We gotta make sure they get back home safe, but like we're going back out into the war.
But there is like a really cool moment when they go to like break free Hondo, and Katsuni still hasn't built her lightsaber, and Hondo actually kind of motivates her to do it, like psychologically. And it shows that Hondo was a lot rougher in the Clone Wars, but he still had a soft side for kids.
Yeah, I mean, he invites her right to join the team and everything. Aboard Slave One. So it's like it.
Aboard Slave One. I was like, I remember, because obviously I watched this recently. I watched the Clone Wars, but I rewatched it for this episode, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I didn't notice that it was the Slave One the first time. I was like, oh, that's kind of awesome. But I think it goes a lot of, obviously he gets a way nicer personality when he's in Rebels, but it kind of shows you of why he was initially like kind of drawn to Ezra as like a clever kid who's resourceful and kind of into bending the rules too. So I think there's something really cool about Hondo, that he's like the bad guy, but anybody that has a soft spot for kids, you're not that bad.
Well, yeah. And in a way, like, to those that haven't watched like Clone Wars or the animated series, like Hondo is kind of like that in the last Jedi, what's his name, Benicio del Toro, DJ, which is like that morally ambiguous character that am I really doing something wrong? It's like playing both sides kind of person. So there's that parallel, but I love that thing you brought up, Nanny, that Hondo, like, what he values isn't just like the physical, like money. Like he was like, this, I'm gonna watch like an experience that nobody probably has ever seen. Like somebody construct a lightsaber. Like that's priceless. Like which is a good.
Yeah, he values knowledge too.
Yeah. It does have a price at Galaxy's Edge, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, but everything that the mouse touches has a price. That's and I'll be a steep one. You pay it gladly, but it'll be a steep one.
Hondo got to watch it for free. We will need to pay when we go to Anaheim.
Well, I mean, and I think Hondo wasn't completely like after, knowledge for knowledge's sake on that side. I'm pretty sure he was just like, if I can get my hands on some Kyber crystals and know how they're made, I'm pretty sure I can replicate it, which I don't think it's true. I think you actually have to have an affinity for them for it to work, and for you to be able to wake up the Force in those Kyber crystals for them to work. Unless you like bastardize the process like the Jedi did, but like the Sith did, sorry.
It's a nebulous idea of like how to access Kyber crystals, because for example the Death Star was powered by a giant Kyber crystal, and it wasn't like in tune with the Force for that, so you can weaponize them without the Force necessarily. But again, it's like one of these Star Wars things where it's just like, well, it depends what the story needs are. So like I don't know how we explain when it's done for the Death Star versus like why it needs to be attuned to the Force when it's done with for a lightsaber. So
I mean, you can argue that Star is you're just channeling an energy from point A to point B, and then the lightsaber, you're holding the energy within a specific chamber. So one is just the unhinged energy just gonna blast, and then the other you have the send more controlled energy that's just stable.
Or you could argue that all the murdered Jedi across the galaxy, they repurposed all those lightsabers that were already activated Kyber crystals and then forged a giant already activated Kyber crystal.
Although that's a cool theory, it's not. Actually, again, they were actually mining giant Kyber crystals from sources like Ilum and Jedi from Rogue One. So, I mean, they might have sprinkled some dead Jedi Kyber crystals in there, but it was basically like giant crystals.
Giant crystals.
Mining.
Yeah. And actually, remind me how they bastardized how did they make those Kyber crystals bleed to make them red? Like, what is it that they did?
So we get to see them in the Darth Vader comic books, which I have not read, but you also get to see it in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic books, which I have read. And it's basically basically an emotional process where you have to basically succumb to the dark side of the Force with them, and just give into the darkness and make them bleed through what you're feeling and your connection to the Force. But you also, to connect to the Force in that way, to the dark side, you have to do dark side deeds, right? That kind of prove to the Kyber crystal in a way that you are dark side, not faking it, so to speak. So it's that's kind of how you do it. Once you do that, you can embed it with the darkness.
So it's triggered by murder and just doing Sith deeds to make it bleed.
More or less, Well, it's basically the opposite of I don't know if in the Ahsoka book they explain how she purified them, but it's basically the opposite way of that.
I mean, it's kind of similar to this idea that you have quartz and crystals and you can channel different herds and stuff like that. I think that's the mirror image of what they're trying to do.
Right, except in real life, that's fake.
Well, it is, but at the end of the day, when you create something, you leave something of yourself in what you create. Right. Yeah. Somebody you, like an architect, when you design something, you're leaving something of yourself behind. So
it's the idea of if you're mentally channeling something to a crystal, you're also, by the act of thinking or doing those acts, you're also embodying those feelings, and that's what's going to get out there. I'm throwing hate at a rock. I'm more likely to throw hate at you than vice versa. I'm trying to love this rock. That's or minerals. Sorry.
See what you did there. Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
Thank you.
I completely forgot. But yeah,
you were saying about projecting your positivity or negativity to an object. It propels itself to also
yes. It's a good exercise, So
yeah, and Kyber crystals, they kind of define them they're kind of amplifiers, and this tool like wands, like we were talking about with Harry Potter. It's and it's not, you don't necessarily completely need it, because I think Dumbledore was able to do magic without the wand, but the wand is an amplifier. So it's a channel to make your magic more effective. So a lightsaber is just trying to make the Force more effective as a sword.
Right. Yeah. Or to compare to something we were talking about fairly recently, or the super soldier serum in Captain America. It's you in Steve Rogers, you have good and it amplifies the goodness, and if you have bad, it amplifies that.
It amplifies the negative.
It's not about the object itself or the thing that you're using. It's about the spirit within that gives the energy, right, and projects that thing outward.
It amplifies the inner.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of like a valid comparison in a way.
Yeah. Depends on your own point of view.
From your own point of view. It's always from your own point of view. I am kind of sad because I remember the droid, when he was talking to the younglings in the episode, was this is one of the most eventful gatherings I've ever seen. But if you would have heard Yoda's story, it's oh my God, what happens? He's about to tell it, and we
Of
never
course,
get to hear it.
because we never get to hear anything about Yoda's backstory. But
Mhm.
maybe in the future we'll get to see the not High Republic,
Yoda's
because High
gathering.
Republic is 200 years ago. Maybe when they do Knights of the Old Republic, and then we'll get to see Yoda as a youngling. And maybe
Baby
finally we'll
Yoda.
get to
A
actual
legit
baby
an
Yoda.
actual baby
Actual
Yoda.
baby
baby
Yoda.
Yoda.
And finally
Disney,
get
I'm
to
okay
see.
with that. Actual baby Yoda.
Maybe that's what they'll name him, as like actual baby Yoda.
Actual.
The baby Yoda.
I'd be cool with this.
I would be super okay with it. But anyway, I think we've gone over the arc, pretty much all of it. I don't know if you guys have some final thoughts before we sign out.
I think we went above and beyond. I don't know.
Gung is still alive and rocking. That's the only thing that
Oh, yeah.
matters.
Gungi is a true MVP. He is a precious boy, and he must be protected at all costs.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that according to all of our headcanon, Gungi's still around somewhere. Gungi's alive.
Hashtag Gungi lives.
Gungi lives.
Gungi lives.
Hashtag Gungi lives. Hashtag where is Gungi? Hashtag more Gungi, please.
More Gungi, please.
Make those
Gungi,
make that trend immediately.
Make that trend. We gotta start it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, we are Triad of the Force. If you're interested in Clone Wars, we have done arcs on Mortis. We've talked about Asajj Ventress and the Night Sisters. We've also talked about Yoda's journey of transcendence. So if you want, check those out. If you want us to discuss other Clone Wars arcs that you love, let us know. Leave a comment, like us, subscribe, give us some love. I have some awesome lightsaber t-shirts too.
That's for all you evil Raylos. If like you don't like a good Ben Solo and a good boy sweater, and you don't like Rey wielding a yellow lightsaber, you want to see them go dark, that's the shirt for you. Empress and Supreme Leader. It's like it's the dark side flavor of the Raylo. So do it.
Fantastic. Well, anyway, again, Triad of the Force. Search us, comment, like, subscribe. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, anywhere that podcast can be found. Just search Triad of the Force and give us some love. Or hate, we're fine. Just let us know. And with that, may the Force be with you.
Peace.